The night I moved into my new apartment, the last thing I expected was to be greeted by a shirtless guy holding a hammer and a half-eaten slice of pizza. "Sorry," he said, glancing down at his grease-stained sweatpants. "I was fixing the shelf. Pizza break kinda. Extended." I blinked. "I'm Jake, Unit 4B. He grinned. "Ben, 4A. Welcome to the world's most okay building." That was my introduction to Ben, my next-door neighbor. I had just gone through a breakup that felt like it peeled the skin off my chest. My ex, Darren, had left without warning. Just a text saying, "I can't do this anymore," and a void where our shared future had been. Moving into a new place was supposed to be a reset. Clean slate, new start. I wasn't ready for people. I especially wasn't ready for someone like Ben. Ben was the type of guy who lit up a room just by standing in it. Not loud, not in your face, just effortlessly present. Tall, lean, with messy blonde hair and that kind of tan that told me he spent more time outside than I ever had. The kind of guy who made everyone around him laugh, even when he was just fixing shelves in his sweatpants. Over the next few days, I tried to keep things cordial but distant. I wasn't looking for friends, just needed time to rebuild, but Ben had a way of slipping past my guard. He'd knock on my door with an extra coffee from the shop down the street, or lean out of his window to ask if I wanted to join him on the rooftop for some air. One night, he knocked again, this time with a six-pack. "You free?" he asked. "Rooftop's quiet. I've got beer and an embarrassing playlist from high school." I almost said no. Almost. But something about the way he looked at me, easy, unbothered, like I didn't need to perform or pretend. I nodded. "Yeah, okay." We sat on the rooftop, legs stretched out, the city humming below us. He passed me a bottle. "So, what's your story?" I exhaled, taking a sip. "Not much to tell. Just needed a fresh start." Ben nodded. "Same. This place, it's a weird kind of sanctuary, right? Ugly walls, questionable plumbing, but somehow it grows on you." I smiled, for the first time in days. "Yeah, that's one way to put it." We didn't talk about much that night. Nothing deep. But the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. And then it happened. Not some big moment, not some grand confession, just a glance. A look that lingered a second too long. His knee brushed mine, and neither of us moved. Ben looked over at me, eyes darker now, softer. "You ever feel like you're not as broken as you thought?" he said quietly, "until someone makes you laugh again?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something shift. Something open. After that night on the rooftop, something changed. Ben and I didn't talk about it, whatever it was. There were no heavy conversations or confessions. Just more moments, longer glances, closer proximity, and this quiet, almost imperceptible shift in how we existed around each other. He started showing up at my door with 2 coffees instead of 1. I stopped pretending I didn't hear his music through the wall and started texting him song requests instead. We cooked dinner once in his apartment, just a stupid idea we had because he'd found a recipe online that used only 1 pan and promised maximum flavor, minimal dishes. It ended with us eating on the floor, surrounded by half-chopped onions and burned chicken, laughing harder than I had in months. "Okay," Ben said between bites of soggy garlic bread, "you're officially banned from being in charge of anything that involves an oven." I threw a napkin at him. "I was in charge of slicing. You were the one who forgot to defrost the chicken." "I was distracted," he said with a smirk. "You kept humming that annoying song. You picked the playlist. Still your fault." That was Ben in a nutshell. Deflecting, playful, but always watching. Always attuned to the smallest shift in my mood. Sometimes I'd catch him just looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, his brow furrowed, like he was trying to figure out something even he didn't understand yet. One night, I had a nightmare, same one I'd had on and off since Darren left. I don't even remember the details, just that I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart hammering, chest tight, like it had been filled with cement. I stumbled into the hallway, trying to calm myself down. That's when Ben's door creaked open. He was standing there, shirtless, sleep-ruffled hair and bare feet. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, scratchy from sleep. I nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just dream." He didn't ask more, just stepped aside. "Come here." I don't know why I went into his apartment that night. I don't know why I sat on his couch, or why he handed me a blanket and made tea like it was the most normal thing in the world. We didn't talk much, just sat there. Me staring into a mug of chamomile like it held the answer to something, and Ben watching me in that same quiet way. After a while, I set the mug down and leaned my head back. "I hate that it still gets to me," I said. Ben didn't say anything. He just reached over and rested his hand over mine. No pressure, no squeeze, just there, present. After a minute, I turned my hand over, letting our fingers link, and when I looked at him again, he didn't look surprised. We stayed like that for a while, his fingers loosely laced with mine, the silence wrapping around us like a blanket. Nothing felt forced. It was like the kind of moment you don't know you've been missing until it's happening. Eventually, I shifted my weight, the couch creaking softly under me. "I should probably go," I said, though I didn't mean it. My body wasn't moving, and neither was his. Ben looked at me for a second, his mouth twitching like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. Then, he just gave this small nod and said, "You can stay if you want." I blinked. "Like stay over?" He scratched the back of his neck, suddenly sheepish. "Yeah, I mean, just crash here. If that helps, I don't mind." There was something incredibly disarming about the way he said it. No expectations, no hidden motives. Just pure, simple care. I exhaled slowly and nodded. "All right." He got up, pulled a blanket from the hall closet, tossed it over the couch for me. Then he stood there for a moment in the doorway of his bedroom, silhouetted in the soft glow from the kitchen light. "I'll leave the door open," he said, "if you need anything." I laid back on the couch, the blanket pulled up to my chest, but my eyes stayed open, fixed on the ceiling. It was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that eats you alive. It was the kind that felt watched over, safe. And somewhere in the stillness, I realized that was the first night in weeks I fell asleep without needing music or something playing in the background. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. Ben was already up, padding around the kitchen in an old hoodie and gym shorts. His hair was sticking up in every direction, and he looked like the very definition of barely functioning adult. But when he saw me sit up, his face broke into this slow, sleepy grin. "Morning, couch gremlin," he said, handing me a mug. "Morning, chef," I replied, eyeing the scrambled eggs on the stove. "You actually cooking?" He held up a spatula like a trophy. "Don't act so surprised. I'm a man of many talents. You burnt toast once just making grilled cheese. That was a tactical error. I've evolved." I laughed, the sound surprising even me. Ben looked at me for a moment and then turned back to the stove, like he was giving me space to have that moment quietly. We ate breakfast on the balcony, him cross-legged in one of those cheap folding chairs, me curled up on the step. The city was just waking up, horns in the distance, birds darting between buildings. It felt like the kind of morning that shouldn't be as intimate as it was. "So Jake," Ben said, sipping his coffee, "you gonna tell me what that dream was about?" I didn't answer right away, just stared at the skyline, watching the haze lift over the buildings. "It's stupid," I finally said. Ben shrugged. "Still want to hear it?" I drew in a breath. "It's the same dream every time. I'm standing in our old apartment, me and Darren's, and everything's gone. Furniture, photos, even the walls. Just emptiness. And then I turn around, and I'm the one disappearing, like my body's breaking apart piece by piece. And he's just standing there, watching. Not helping, not even moving. Just letting it happen." Ben was quiet for a long time. Then he leaned back in his chair and said, "Fuck that guy." It made me laugh, a short, dry one, but it was real. "I mean it," he continued. "You don't just vanish on someone like that. You don't make them feel like they're unworthy of staying solid." I looked at him, eyebrows raised. "That's pretty poetic for a guy in sweatpants," he smiled. "What can I say? I've been watching Ted Lasso." But the smile faded after a second, and his voice softened. "I'm glad you stayed last night." "Me too," I said before I even thought about it. That afternoon, I went back to my place. We texted the way people do when something new is hovering between them. More frequently, a little more personal, always with a pause before hitting send. We didn't name it, didn't rush it, but it was there. 2 nights later, I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed. "Ben, Rooftop? Got that stupid playlist again." I was already grabbing my hoodie before I typed back. "Me? On my way!" The Rooftop had become our place without us ever saying it out loud. That night, the sky was mostly clear. Stars scattered just enough to remind you they were still there above all the noise and smog. I found Ben leaning against the edge, earbuds already in, one dangling toward me. "Shared suffering," he said, holding it out. "Track 1 is something truly humiliating from middle school." I smirked and popped it in. The opening notes of Fall Out Boy hit us at the same time. "You really went there," I said. Ben grinned. "It's a full nostalgia trip tonight, you've been warned." We sat side by side, backs against the brick wall, knees pulled up like two kids hiding out from the world. The playlist rolled on, everything from emo anthems to early 2000s bangers, and somewhere between Paramore and Third Eye Blind, our shoulders started touching. First, lightly, then with purpose. Ben tapped his bottle against mine. "To bad music and better nights." I clinked his bottle and nodded. "I'll drink to that." For a while, we didn't say anything, just stared out across the city, letting the music fill the space. But I could feel him watching me out of the corner of his eye, waiting. And I knew eventually something had to give. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. "After he left?" I didn't answer right away. "You don't have to tell me," he said quickly. Sometimes it feels like you're holding your breath, even when you're laughing." That hit harder than I expected. I stared at the skyline, letting his words settle. "I stopped trusting what I felt," I finally said. "I'd look at someone and wonder if I was just imagining the connection, if I wanted it so badly I made it up." Ben was quiet, but I could feel the way he turned toward me a little more. With Darren, I didn't see it coming. He was just gone one day, and it made me question everything. Every look. Every word. Like, if I had paid more attention, maybe I would have known. He shifted, his knee bumping mine. "That's not on you." "Doesn't change the damage," I said. After that, it felt safer to just not feel anything at all. Ben leaned his head back against the wall, exhaling. "You know what I see when I look at you?" I turned slightly, surprised by the shift in his voice. "I see someone who tries so damn hard to keep it together, it's like you forgot you don't have to do it alone." That hit somewhere deep. I didn't speak, just stared at him. The shape of his face in the moonlight, the curve of his lips, the softness in his eyes. The way he looked at me wasn't like he was trying to fix me. It was like he already saw the cracks and liked me anyway. He reached out slowly, hand resting against my knee. And then he asked, "Can I kiss you?" It felt like everything inside me stopped. Not out of panic, but because I'd been waiting, quietly, unknowingly, for that moment to come. I nodded. He leaned in. It wasn't some dramatic, movie-perfect kiss. It was soft, hesitant, real, the kind of kiss that says, "I'm here, if you want me to be." When we pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Neither of us said anything. We didn't have to. Eventually, he stood and held out his hand. "Come on," he said. "My place. I've got snacks, and more embarrassing music." I took it, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was walking into something that might collapse beneath me. I felt steady. I felt seen. Ben's apartment felt different that night. It wasn't the space. Same old slanted floors and that smell of clean laundry and cinnamon that always hung around, but something about the energy had shifted. We didn't talk much as we walked inside, just exchanged glances laced with something unspoken but undeniable. He tossed his keys on the counter and opened the fridge. "All right," he said, voice a little too casual. "I've got cheese puffs, leftover Chinese, and half a pint of mint chocolate chip that I'll literally fight you for." I leaned against the doorway, watching him move around like nothing had changed, even though everything had. "Cheese puffs and a kiss. You really know how to treat a guy," Ben chuckled, glancing at me over his shoulder. Hey, I never claimed to be classy. We ended up on his couch, the ice cream between us, eating straight out of the tub with mismatched spoons. The TV was on, playing something neither of us were really watching. My legs were tucked under me, and Ben sat cross-legged, facing me more than the screen. He kept sneaking looks at me, like he was trying to memorize the way I held the spoon, or how I laughed when he dropped a bit of ice cream on his shirt. "You know," he said, wiping at the stain with the edge of his blanket, "I didn't plan for this." I raised an eyebrow. "What, the melted dessert war?" He shook his head slowly. "No, you. This." I set my spoon down and met his gaze. "Me either." He hesitated for a moment, then leaned back against the couch, arms folded behind his head. "When you first moved in, I told myself I was just being neighborly. You looked like you'd been through it, and I figured I'd offer some beers, lend you my Spotify password, maybe borrow a screwdriver or two. That's it." I smiled. "And how'd that plan work out?" He turned his head to look at me, eyes a little softer now. "Terribly." There was a beat of silence. Then he added, "You scared me a little." I blinked. "Me?" "Yeah. Because I didn't expect to care this fast. And because you were clearly still healing. I didn't want to push you." "You didn't," I said. Ben sat up slightly, now leaning on his elbow, eyes locked on mine. "But I wanted to." That landed with a weight I hadn't prepared for. Because, yeah, I'd felt it too. That pull. That low, steady current that had been building from the moment I stepped into this building. The late nights on the rooftop. The silent breakfasts. The ease of his presence. How he filled the quiet without making it heavy. "Ben," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "you're not a rebound." He looked down, like he'd been holding on to that fear. "I know that now," I said. Took me a minute to stop running from everything, but what I feel when I'm with you, it's not about filling space. He exhaled, a shaky breath that seemed to leave tension behind. We didn't kiss again right away. We just sat there, in that pocket of honesty, letting it wrap around us like the softest possible silence. Outside, the city kept moving, cars in the distance, life pressing on. Inside, I shifted closer, resting my head on his shoulder. Ben reached down and laced our fingers together. No urgency, no need to name it. Just us. And it was enough. The next few days passed in a kind of gentle blur. No fireworks, no dramatic declarations, just the steady unfolding of something that felt real. We didn't label it. That was the unspoken rule. Maybe because we were both a little scared to put it in a box and risk changing what was working, but we kept gravitating toward each other. Mornings with shared coffee. Evenings spent watching trash TV. Nights where we didn't bother saying goodbye before one of us fell asleep on the other's couch. It was easy until it wasn't. It happened on a Wednesday. I was finishing up some remote work, laptop balanced on my knees, when Darren texted me. "Hey, saw you moved. Hope you're doing okay." Just that. Nothing malicious, nothing dramatic. But it hit harder than I expected. Ben noticed immediately. He always did. "Everything good?" he asked from the kitchen, where he was attempting to make grilled cheese with artisanal sourdough and way too much butter. I didn't answer right away, just stared at the message, the cursor blinking back at me like it had something to say. He walked over, plate in hand, setting it on the table. "Jake?" I looked up. "It's from him. Darren." Ben's jaw tightened for half a second, just enough to register. Then he sat beside me. "You gonna respond?" I shrugged. "I don't know. What's the point? You tell me. I set the phone down, face down. I thought I'd feel something. Anger, relief, closure. But mostly, I just feel tired. Ben nodded, like he understood that too well. You want to be alone? He asked. I shook my head slowly. No, I just want to be here. His eyes softened, and he reached for my hand. Then let's stay here. That night, he stayed over again, but this time in my apartment, in my bed. We didn't rush anything, didn't tear each other's clothes off like some movie scene. We just lay there, facing each other, limbs tangled, the heat between us, unspoken but steady. And sometime after midnight, when the world had quieted, Ben whispered, "You make it easy to stay." That undid something in me. Not because it was poetic, but because it was true. All my life, I'd made it hard for people to stay. Built walls, ducked honesty, waited for the other shoe to drop. Ben never forced his way in. He just waited at the door until I opened it. A week later, we sat on the rooftop again. This time, we brought a real blanket, takeout from the Thai place down the street, and a bottle of cheap wine Ben insisted was underrated. He tilted his head toward the skyline. So, do we keep doing this? I glanced at him. You mean the illegal rooftop picnics? He nudged me with his elbow. I mean us, you and me. I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I think we do. And then I leaned over and kissed him. Right there, under the faint glow of the city, our takeout containers forgotten, the wine untouched. Because the truth was, I had no idea what the future looked like. But I knew this. Ben was in it. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. 6 months later, I still had Ben's hoodie hanging in my closet. It was technically mine now. A silent surrender, made official sometime around the 3rd time he left it, draped over the back of my chair, and never asked for it back. It smelled like him. Clean laundry, coffee, and that subtle citrus scent from the soap he pretended wasn't expensive. We hadn't moved in together, though everyone expected we would. Friends would ask, eyebrows raised, still doing the whole separate apartments thing? Like it was some outdated concept. But it worked for us. Our doors stayed open. Our routines blurred. Some nights we slept at my place. Some nights at his. Sometimes we both just crashed wherever the night left us. It wasn't about drawing lines. It was about knowing we didn't need them anymore. The old fears didn't vanish overnight. Some days I still flinched at sudden shifts, still waited for the ground to fall out beneath me. But every time that panic crept in, Ben was there. Not with big speeches or over-the-top reassurances, but with the simple, grounding presence of someone who meant what they said and said what they meant. He had this way of reading me, knowing when to back off and when to step in, like the day I bumped into Darren on the street. It was brief, awkward, the kind of encounter that leaves you a little shaky, even if nothing important is said. He asked how I was doing, told me I looked good, said he was happy for me, whoever he was. Ben didn't ask for details when I came home. He just held my gaze a little longer that night, pulled me close when I sank into the couch, and kissed the top of my head while we watched New Girl reruns in comfortable silence. In the spring, we took a trip upstate, rented a tiny cabin with 0 cell service and a broken fireplace that we spent hours trying to fix. We failed. Ended up huddled under a mountain of blankets, laughing so hard at our ridiculous attempts to live off the grid that we forgot we were freezing. That night, as we lay tangled in a nest of pillows, Ben traced lazy circles on my chest and said, "You ever think about what this would have looked like if we'd met at a different time?" I looked down at him, the firelight flickering across his face. "Yeah," I said, "but then we might not have been ready." He nodded. "We're messy, but I like our kind of messy." And I did too. Because we weren't perfect. We bickered, forgot laundry, left dishes in the sink. Sometimes I got too quiet, and he got too inside his own head, but at the end of the day, we always came back to each other. Not because we had to, but because we wanted to. And as simple as that sounds, it was everything. So yeah, 6 months later, we were still figuring it out. But we were doing it together. And that's what made all the difference.